Season 2 of House of the Dragon has been full of surprises, from classic Game of Thrones scheming to insane dragon fights. But you see, the thing that has been on my mind the most is just what the heck is going on with Daemon Targaryen and Herrenhal. Hello everyone, I'm Finn. Welcome back to finnfilms. Join me today as we're discussing House of the Dragon's Fire and Blood once again, specifically Daemon's strange dreams and hallucinations that he is suffering from in Herrenhal. As in today's video, I will be discussing 3 theories as to what exactly, who exactly, and why exactly Daemon is suffering from these strange dreams and hallucinations. So currently, at the time of recording, there have been 5 episodes of Season 2 of House of the Dragon, and so far, throughout these episodes, we have seen our boy, Daemon Targaryen, suffer from a series of strange dreams, some of these dreams even seeming prophetic at times. These visions, dreams, and hallucinations are as follows: seeing himself as Aemon Targaryen stalking throughout Harrenhal, seeing a young Rhaenyra holding the body of the dead Prince Jaehaerys, interacting with a young Rhaenyra on the throne in King's Landing, Daemon ultimately cutting her head off, several visions and hallucinations of his dead wife Laena, the cries of women and children, and finally, his own mother, who he bangs. We're going to go into further detail later in the video on these dreams and hallucinations and what exactly they might mean and what exactly their purpose are, but for now, there is the list, at least so far in House of the Dragon, of the dreams and hallucinations that Daemon has been suffering from. So before we really get into these theories as to who or what is sending Daemon these dreams and what these dreams might mean to Daemon, we need to discuss dreams and prophecies in Game of Thrones lore. Dreams and prophecies are a very, powerful things in Game of Thrones. In the words of George R. Martin, prophecies can be tricky. Prophecies are a double-edged sword. You have to handle them very carefully. And we've definitely seen how prophecies and dreams can get a little bit tricky in Game of Thrones lore, specifically, off the top of my head, the prophecy of Azor Ahai, as well as the prophecy of Aegon the Conqueror, Aegon's Dream, A Song of Ice and Fire, just to name a few. Prophecies in Game of Thrones a lot of times are seemingly self-fulfilling. We have a number of examples of characters being obsessed with prophecies throughout Game of Thrones, and it almost seems like they themselves fulfill the prophecy. They themselves make the prophecy come true, that the prophecy itself, these dreams that they may suffer from, these visions that they may be granted, aren't even true. It's not like the prophecy is the reason why these events came to be. It is the fact that they believe that they are true, and so, subconsciously they enact these events to make these prophecies come true. However, we do know in Game of Thrones lore that there are characters who do receive visions, who do seem to see prophetic dreams. We have a number of examples of these, first being Greensight, this ability to have prophetic dreams, for example, in characters like Jojen Reed, Bran Stark, and the One-Eyed Raven, to name a few of the most obvious ones. Next up, we have dragon dreams. These are Targaryen-specific dreams, oftentimes these dreams being labeled as prophetic, usually these dreams having dragons, especially after the death of all of the dragons in kind of the modern age of Game of Thrones, but they don't technically have to have dragons in them to be dragon dreams. We have tons of examples of dragon dreams in Game of Thrones. Dany's dragon dream of a black dragon that occurs shortly before the birth of her own dragons. As well, we have Daenerys the Dreamer, who has a vision of the destruction of Valyria, a vision that her father believed was so true and must be prophetic that he relocated their entire house to Dragonstone. 12 years after this fact, Valyria ultimately did fall and the other dragon lords were destroyed. And finally, one of the most pressing examples is the dream, the prophecy of Aegon the Conqueror, Aegon's dream of ice and fire, a dream that ultimately did motivate him to conquer and unite Westeros. Next up, we have Weirwood dreams, as it is reported by Alys Rivers. As well, we learn from Jaime Lannister that it is possible for characters to have prophetic, strange visions and dreams when they sleep on weirwoods, as an example being Jaime sleeping on the stump of a weirwood tree in, I believe, Storm of Swords, and having a prophetic vision. And finally, glass candles. Strange glass candles that were brought to the Citadel from Valyria 1,000 years before the Doom. It is claimed that these glass candles can be used to send dreams and visions to men all across the world, and can be used to spy on men as well. Glass candles are mentioned a variety of times throughout the Game of Thrones book series, more often in A Dance with Dragons, where they are referenced several times, and it is even claimed that the glass candles are burning once again, meaning that someone could be sending visions across Game of Thrones, specifically in Dance of the Dragons. Most commonly, people's theory is it is Maester Morrowind, a very interesting character in Game of Thrones lore. As well, we have an example of Quaithe possibly using a glass candle to communicate with Dany, specifically in A Dance with Dragons, when Quaithe meets with Dany in the apex of the Great Pyramid. Dany wondering how Quaithe could have possibly gotten in. Quaithe replying that she came another way, possibly referencing the glass candle, and that this is a vision that she is sending to Dany. Quaithe then telling Dany that the glass candles are burning once again. And I just said, glass candles are basically one of the most confirmed ways, at least that we know of in Game of Thrones lore, to send dreams to other people. The real two questions, though, are why and who? Why is Daemon suffering from these dreams and hallucinations? What is the ultimate end goal? What are they trying to get him to acknowledge, to understand, or to get him to do? And who? Who exactly, or what exactly, is sending these dreams to Daemon? To answer these questions, I've come up with three kind of broad theories of who and why is sending these dreams and hallucinations to Daemon. Number one, this is the Curse of Herrenhal and Harren the Black. As we learned throughout these episodes from Alys Rivers, Harren the Black felled a large network of weirwood trees in the construction of Herrenhal. Harren the Black even going as far as to construct his own bed out of weirwood, this angering the old gods, putting a curse on Herrenhal. As we know throughout Game of Thrones lore, many of those who have claimed Herrenhal have suffered an untimely end. This ranges from many individuals to literally entire houses that have gone extinct, that have been wiped out completely after owning and being in charge of Herrenhal. Number two, from sleeping on weirwood. As I just said, we learned from Alys Rivers that Harren the Black constructed his own bed from weirwood, and according to Alys Rivers, as well as one other reference that I could find in Game of Thrones and Game of Thrones lore, sleeping on weirwood has the ability to give dreams, to give potentially prophetic dreams and visions. Specifically, we know that Jaime in his Storm of Swords has a somewhat prophetic vision, some kind of vision with some kind of meaning that occurs when he sleeps on the stump of a weirwood tree. Now, the contents of Jaime's vision are not really that important, though they do seem to be prophetic in some sense. At the very least, they are a vision of something that Jaime seems to take meaning from, which at the end of the day is all that matters when it comes to visions and prophecies in Game of Thrones lore. But this does give us an example occurring within our story of sleeping on a weirwood tree, whether it be a stump or the wood itself, giving some kind of visions or dreams to the person sleeping. And finally, the most popular theory, that these dreams were sent by none other than Alys Rivers, a very kind of iconic character in Fire and Blood, in the Dance of the Dragons. There's many reasons why people suspect that Alys Rivers is the one sending these visions. Number one, she is very much aware of the dreams and their content. As we see in the show, she references them several times, specifically and most obviously being the reference that came in episode 5 when she comments on Daemon's relationship with his mother and the fact that it was tragic that Daemon never met his mother. This being sus as fuck because Daemon literally just had his dream with his mother, moments prior to speaking to Alys Rivers. As well, throughout House of the Dragons, we see that every time that Daemon has one of these prophetic visions and dreams, he seems to see Alys Rivers nearby. Now, to get a better idea on why people believe that Alys Rivers sent these visions and what her motivations might be, let's look at all of the knowledge and lore that we know about her from Fire and Blood. So we know from several sources in Game of Thrones history that Alys Rivers was a bastard of Lord Lionel Strong, or at least that's what some think. Others, like the Fool Mushroom, believing that Alys Rivers is much older than a bastard of Lionel Strong, that she was even there when Lionel Strong was a young man, that she has lived for an untimely number of years and keeps her appearances young by bathing in maiden's blood. Now, other writers of history in the Game of Thrones lore, specifically the kind of references for Fire and Blood, the history texts within the Game of Thrones lore itself, such as Maester Munkin and Scepter Eustace, disagree with Mushroom's take here, though they do comment on Alys's young appearance, as she, according to their history, is around 40 in the Dance of the Dragons at this time in House of the Dragons, and they comment on the fact that she looks much younger than 40, so there is this kind of through line there. As well, in the Maester's historical texts, we learn that some do claim that Alys is a woods witch for a variety of reasons, particularly for reasons that happened in the Dance of the Dragons themselves. As I said earlier, we're going to be discussing some potential spoilers for House of the Dragon. If you don't want any spoilers for this section of Alys Rivers, then skip to the time down below. After the Greens and Aemond retake Herrenhal from Daemon, Aemond himself would actually take Alys as his bedmate, Alys claiming that she had Aemond's child inside of him. Ultimately, this child she would claim is the rightful heir to the Iron Throne post the events of the Dance of the Dragon. In the final battle between Aemond and Daemon over the God's Eye, the battle that would ultimately leave both of them supposedly dead, Aemond tells Daemon that it was Alys's visions that helped him find her. Aemond saying that his woman sees many things in her visions. In 132 AC, during the regency of Aegon III, towards the end of the Dance of the Dragons, it was said that a number of outlaws had gathered in Harrenhal under a witch queen, this witch queen ultimately being revealed as Alys Rivers. A number of men around her claiming that Alys did have some kind of magical powers, able to kill men from a distance with just a word or just a vision. Daemon Darry even claiming he had seen a dragon inside Harrenhal, as well as other feats of magic and death that they attribute to Alys. So then it seems like there is something strange and odd with Alys Rivers herself, even in House of the Dragons, claiming that she herself is a woods witch. She is a owl who has lived who's been trapped in human form. Obviously, she seems to be with Daemon in some aspect here, but there is a lot of mystery around Alys Rivers and a lot of theories and speculation that she is magical, she is a woods witch, she does have some of these capabilities in some aspect. So then the question is, if Alys is the one sending these dreams to Daemon, how is she doing it? To me, there really only seems to be like two main ways that Alys could be doing this. One, through a glass candle, which is seemingly unlikely, but we do know is a confirmed way that visions can be sent to people in Game of Thrones lore. And number two, the more likely outcome, through weirwood paste. We've already seen in House of the Dragons, Alys preparing drinks for Daemon, claiming that these drinks will help him sleep and get through his visions, but it is very possible that she is putting weirwood paste made from weirwood into the drinks, the same paste that the One-Eyed Raven has Bran drink in Game of Thrones, which helps to amplify his prophetic visions. It's very possible that that's what could be causing Daemon's visions in House of the Dragons. The question then is, if it is Alys Rivers who is causing these visions, why is she doing it? To try to understand this, we need to delve back into the hallucinations and dreams themselves to try to get a better look on what exactly is happening to Daemon in these dreams. So as I said, one of the first hallucinations that we see Daemon have in Harrenhal is when he sees Aemond, or what he thinks is Aemond, stalking throughout Harrenhal. However, it is revealed that it is Daemon himself with a patch over his eye in the style of Aemond One-Eye. Now, there's a ton we can unpack here. Obviously, Daemon and Aemond are super similar as characters. Both are very talented swordsmen, both are talented dragon riders, and both are ruthless and cold-hearted in many ways. They're extremely similar in a variety of ways. Another way being the fact that both of them are second sons. Second sons being a common theme in Game of Thrones lore. This idea that the second son is the son that basically gets the short end of the stick, the son that will never rule, and as such, they always seem to covet the throne or the inheritance of their elder brother. As we know, Game of Thrones is very much a story of succession. Succession is ultimately a major plot driver in Game of Thrones, as well as a kind of controversy driver, and ultimately George is critiquing this idea of succession in the Game of Thrones novels. This idea of succession and the second son, the fact that Daemon has had his inheritance taken away from him when Viserys names Rhaenyra heir, is a kind of through line through some of the other dreams and visions that we see him encounter, specifically specifically the two, in fact, when he sees young Rhaenyra. First, we have young Rhaenyra sewing back on the head of Prince Jaehaerys. This seems to be a play on Daemon's guilt and Daemon's sins. Another reoccurring factor throughout these visions and hallucinations is the many sins of Daemon Targaryen. One, the coveting of his elder brother's throne and the throne of Rhaenyra, Daemon believing that he should have been the one to always rule, and two, now the death of Prince Jaehaerys at his hands, as Daemon was ultimately the one who set the plan of Blood and Cheese into motion, ultimately to kill Aemond. However, we know how that plot went. Ultimately, Blood and Cheese ending up killing Aegon's son, the young Prince Jaehaerys. And then the second Rhaenyra vision, where we see a young Rhaenyra sitting on the Iron Throne. This is kind of a fun parallel scene back to season 1, when Rhaenyra walks into the throne room and we see Daemon sitting on the Iron Throne. This scene very much paralleling that. Daemon ultimately cutting Rhaenyra's head off in this scene, as Daemon obviously has some strange feelings about Rhaenyra. The fact that Rhaenyra was the one who took what he believes as his birthright, the fact that Daemon has always coveted the throne and even believes that he himself should have been king, not his elder brother Viserys. Like I said, a common trope in Game of Thrones, this idea of the second son. Again, another link between Daemon and Aemond, both of them believing that they should have been king, both of them arguably being, especially in the case of Aemond, more qualified to be king. However, due to succession, the throne falls to their older brother, and once their older brother has children, there's basically no way that they will ultimately inherit this throne. This links nicely to Daemon's most recent and arguably most shocking vision that we see in episode 5 of House of the Dragon, where Daemon is getting it on with a Targaryen woman that is then revealed to be his mother.
You have a poison in your mind, and the fact that you can't see it makes me so sad.
Specifically in these visions, we hear his mother basically telling Daemon everything he wanted to hear, that he was the stronger of the two sons, he was the favorite of the two sons, he was the son who always should have ruled, something that Daemon very much has thought, and we've seen he's thought throughout all of House of the Dragons so far. As well, Daemon has a number of visions about his dead wife, Laena, another example of Daemon's sins, as Daemon very much kind of holds himself, seemingly at least, holds himself responsible for Laena's death, as it was her pregnancy that killed her, similarly to Viserys' wife's pregnancy that killed her in episode 1 of House of the Dragon. Daemon feeling a kind of guilt for the death of his wife, as well as the fact that he has not been involved in his children's lives really that much, as much as he should have been after the death of his wife, and definitely in the most recent events after he has abandoned Rhaenyra to come to Harrenhal. And finally, in episode 5, we have another instance of Daemon's guilt as he hears the cries of women and children when he is chopping wood, these cries being the cries of the women and children that were killed in the war crimes of the Blackwoods. Daemon ordering Lord Blackwood to motivate the Brackens to join their side by basically slaughtering women and children and taking them hostage. Another example of Daemon's regrets and the many sins that he has committed. Now, if we believe it is Alys Rivers who is sending these visions to Daemon, possibly through weirwood paste in the potions that she is giving him, the question is, why is she doing this? To me, it really only seems like one of two options. She is either trying to split Daemon from Rhaenyra, or she is trying to do the opposite, to bring them closer by showing Daemon his greatest sins and his greatest weaknesses. To me, though, it seems way more likely that she is trying to split Daemon and Rhaenyra apart, to manipulate him, to ultimately go and pursue the throne of his own devices, and to abandon Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra's cause for his own selfish cause. As we even see in episode 5, Daemon start to refer to himself as king, even stating that he would take King's Landing for himself, and then he and Rhaenyra could rule together as equals, not as a king consort. Now, why she would exactly do this, we're not exactly sure. If we were to believe that Alys Rivers has these kind of visions of the future, has prophetic visions and dreams, and we are being led to believe that she does, obviously she seemingly is very aware of the visions that Daemon is suffering from. Is claimed in House of the Dragon and Fire and Blood lore that Alys Rivers herself does have prophetic visions. As I said earlier, in kind of the history of Alys Rivers, Aemond himself even claiming that Alys Rivers has these visions, and we have that very first cryptic line between Alys and Daemon in early episodes of Season 2 of House of the Dragons, when Alys says that this will be your final resting place, that Daemon will die in Herrenhal. So then to me, this seems to be the most likely outcome. It does seem like it is Alys Rivers who is the one giving Daemon these visions, quite possibly through the use of Weirwood paste, or maybe other types of magical abilities or enchantment, such as a glass candle, though that is probably unlikely. It would be very cool to see a glass candle in action in House of the Dragons, though again, unlikely. Her motivation for doing this seems to be to divide Rhaenyra and Daemon, as Rhaenyra very much needs Daemon to ultimately win this war. It seems like she is manipulating Daemon, possibly even grooming him for what? We're not exactly sure. However, this does seem to be her goal. It very much does seem like these visions that Daemon is receiving is very much feeding into his kind of own narcissistic ego complex, his doubts and his sins. The fact that he does covet his now wife's throne, his elder brother's throne, as he is the prototypical example of the second son, similar to Aemond. Aemond, though, as we've seen in the most recent events of House of the Dragons, has very much taken matters into his own hands, defying this role of the second son to ascend to King Regent. To me, this does seem to be the best theory as to where these dreams, these hallucinations that Daemon is suffering from is coming from, that they are coming from Alys Rivers, her motivation being to split Rhaenyra and Daemon farther apart. Why she's doing this, that is a lot of questions. If this even is her motivation, again, a lot of questions left to be unanswered. Even knowing the ultimate fate of Alys Rivers' character in Fire and Blood, the books, it doesn't exactly explain why she would be doing this to Daemon, though I do think that this is the most likely theory. If you yourself have your own theory about what exactly is going on with Daemon's visions, why he's receiving them, who or what is sending them to him, then please let me know in the comment section down below. It literally could just be as easy and as simple as the fact that Daemon is sleeping on a weirwood bed, a bed made of weirwood, and we know, as I said earlier, that weirwood, if you sleep on it, does have the ability to give prophetic visions and dreams, so it literally could just be as simple as that. And yes, guys, these were my theories as to what exactly is going on with Daemon and these strange hallucinations, these strange visions and dreams that seem to be plaguing him in Season 2 of House of the Dragons. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as that is the easiest way to help support me and put these videos into the algorithm. If you have your own theory about Daemon and his visions and Alys Rivers, then let me know in the comment section down below. If you did enjoy this video, then why don't you check out some of my other content on screen now, like some of my other House of the Dragons videos. And as always, guys, I hope to see you in the next one. Drink water, hug your mother. Until next time, peace, love, adu.